Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the research vessel UHS Defiant, watching the stars streak past as they traveled through hyperspace. The ship was heading toward Luna Base, carrying the most important cargo in human history. In the science labs below, Dr. Lisa Carter worked on equations that could change everything for humanity in the galaxy. Jake had known Lisa since their academy days 20 years ago. She was brilliant then, and now she was possibly the smartest human alive when it came to exotic matter physics. The Federation had rules about weapons development, strict rules that every member species had to follow. Plasma arrays and kinetic shields were allowed, but nothing more powerful. The Federation liked to keep things peaceful, but peace was not always possible. Jake had seen too many human colonies attacked by pirates and raiders. The Federation fleet was spread too thin across the galaxy, and response times were often too slow. By the time help arrived, entire settlements would be gone. The Federation's answer was always the same: file a report, increase patrols, try diplomatic solutions. It was not enough. Dr. Carter emerged from her lab, her face showing both excitement and worry. She carried a datapad with her latest calculations, numbers that made Jake's head spin when he tried to understand them. Lisa had been working on something called quantum vacuum energy for 3 years now. She believed it was possible to turn this energy into a weapon, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The simulations are complete, Lisa said, handing Jake the datapad. The theory works. We can build reality displacement cannons. Jake looked at the numbers on the screen. He did not understand the physics, but he understood what the weapon could do. Instead of destroying matter like normal weapons, these cannons would erase it from existence completely. No debris, no energy signature, nothing left behind. It was like the target had never existed at all. How powerful are we talking about? Jake asked. A single shot could erase a battleship, Lisa replied. A full power shot could take out an entire fleet. Jake, this technology is beyond anything the Federation has. It's beyond anything any species in the galaxy has. Back on Earth, Admiral Ben Davis sat in his office deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Human Defense Command was hidden away from prying Federation eyes, a necessary precaution in a galaxy where humans were still considered newcomers. Ben had been fighting for better weapons and stronger ships for decades. The Federation always said no. When Dr. Carter's report arrived, Ben read it 3 times before he believed what he was seeing. Reality displacement weapons were theoretical, something that advanced species like the Altarians claimed was impossible. Yet here was proof from a human scientist that not only were they possible, but humanity could build them. Ben made a decision that would change human history. He activated the most classified project in human space, the construction of a new type of warship. This ship would be built in secret, hidden in the asteroid fields beyond Pluto where Federation sensors could not detect it. The ship would be called the UHS Leviathan. Construction began 6 months later. The shipyards were mobile, constantly moving through the asteroid belt to avoid detection. Thousands of workers lived in temporary habitats cut off from the rest of human space. They knew they were building something important, but only a few knew exactly what. The Leviathan was massive, 3 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide. It could house 50,000 crew members and had enough supplies to operate independently for years. The ship's hull was made from the strongest materials humanity could produce, reinforced with energy shields that could deflect most known weapons. But the real power of the Leviathan was hidden deep inside its armored core. 12 reality displacement cannons were mounted in rotating turrets, each one capable of erasing matter from existence. The weapons required massive amounts of power, so the ship carried experimental fusion reactors that produced energy on a scale never before attempted by humans. Dr. Carter oversaw the installation of every weapon system personally. She had developed safety protocols and firing procedures, but even she was not completely sure what would happen when the weapons fired at full power. The physics were sound, but reality displacement was still uncharted territory. Captain Morrison arrived at the construction site 9 months into the project. He had been chosen to command the Leviathan, though the assignment came with serious risks. If the Federation discovered what humanity was building, there would be consequences. Humans could be expelled from the Federation or worse. Jake walked through the ship's corridors, amazed by what human engineers had accomplished. The Leviathan was not just a warship. It was a mobile fortress capable of taking on entire fleets. The crew quarters were comfortable, The medical bay was state-of-the-art, and the command bridge offered a view that stretched across kilometers of space. But it was the weapons that made Jake nervous. In the main gun bay, he stood before one of the reality displacement cannons. The weapon was beautiful in a terrifying way, its crystalline focusing arrays glowing with barely contained energy. Dr. Carter explained how it worked, but Jake still struggled to understand how something could be completely erased from existence. "What happens to the matter?" Jake asked. "It goes somewhere else," Lisa replied. "Another dimension, another reality, we're not sure. The important thing is that it's gone from our universe completely." The first test came on a cold morning in space. The Leviathan moved to a position near a dead moon, an airless rock with no strategic value. The crew took their positions and Dr. Carter ran final checks on all systems. Jake gave the order to fire. The reality displacement cannon charged for 30 seconds, building energy that made the entire ship vibrate. When it fired, there was no flash of light, no explosion, no sound. One moment the moon was there, a gray sphere hanging in space. The next moment it was gone completely. Not destroyed, not vaporized, simply gone. The sensor readings confirmed what their eyes told them. There was no debris field, no gas cloud, no residual energy. Where the moon had been, there was now empty space. The weapon had worked perfectly, and Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity now possessed the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, a weapon so advanced that it violated the natural laws that governed reality itself. Dr. Carter checked her readings and smiled. The test had been successful beyond their best projections. The Leviathan was ready for whatever threats might come, but as Jake looked at the empty space where a moon had been, he wondered if humanity was ready for the power they had just created. 6 months after the Leviathan's first test, alarms screamed across human space. The Zephyrian Empire had launched a massive invasion without warning, their crystalline warships appearing at the edges of 3 human colony systems. The attack was swift and brutal, targeting civilian populations and military installations at the same time. Commander Alex Stone commanded the Federation response fleet from his flagship, the FCS Unity. 12 Federation vessels moved to intercept the Zephyrian forces at New Dallas, humanity's largest colony world outside Earth. Alex had fought pirates and raiders before, but this was different. The Zephyrians were an ancient empire that had been conquering worlds for thousands of years. The enemy ships were unlike anything Alex had seen before. They looked like living crystals, their surfaces reflecting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The largest ships were over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that glowed with internal fire. Intelligence reports said the Zephyrians could phase shift their ships, making them temporarily immune to most weapons. The battle began at the outer edge of the New Dallas system. Alex ordered his ships to attack in formation, their plasma cannons firing in coordinated volleys. The energy beams struck the Zephyrian vessels but seemed to pass right through them. The enemy ships flickered like mirages, solid one moment and ghostly the next. The Zephyrian response was devastating. Quantum torpedoes erupted from their ships, weapons that could tear through Federation shields like paper. Within minutes, 3 Federation vessels were destroyed, their crews vaporized in balls of superheated plasma. The remaining ships scattered, trying to avoid the overwhelming firepower. On New Dallas itself, millions of colonists watched the battle in the sky above their world. The planet's defense platforms opened fire on the approaching Zephyrian ships, but their weapons were no more effective than the Federation fleets. The crystalline vessels descended through the atmosphere like falling stars, landing troops in the major cities. The Zephyrian ground forces were as terrifying as their ships. Standing 3 meters tall, they looked like walking crystals with too many arms and eyes that burned with inner light. They carried weapons that could turn a human into glass with a single shot. Within hours, New Dallas's capital city was under their control. Alex retreated with his surviving ships to Haven Prime, another human colony world. The situation was desperate. His fleet was down to 7 ships, all damaged and low on ammunition. The Zephyrians had over 200 vessels and seemed immune to Federation weapons. Worse, intercepted communication suggested this was just the beginning of a much larger invasion. At Federation headquarters on Alteria Prime, the Council met in emergency session. Representatives from dozens of worlds demanded action, but the Federation's military options were limited. The Zephyrian Empire was not a member of the Federation and had never signed any peace treaties. Technically, they had every right to expand their territory. Ambassador Helen Wright, humanity's representative to the Federation, pleaded for immediate military support. Helen had been Jake Morrison's roommate at the academy and one of his closest friends. She was also one of the few people who knew about the secret weapons projects. Though she had always opposed them, the Altarian Chancellor, a being of pure energy who spoke through a crystalline avatar, offered the Federation's standard response. Diplomatic contact would be attempted. Economic sanctions would be considered. Military intervention would be authorized only if the Zephyrians attacked Federation member worlds directly. But the Zephyrians had no interest in diplomacy. When the Federation embassy ship approached their fleet under a flag of truce, the crystalline warships opened fire immediately. The embassy vessel carrying Ambassador Wright and 50 other diplomats was destroyed in seconds. There were no survivors. News of the embassy's destruction reached Admiral Davis within hours. He sat in his underground office, staring at reports that showed the Federation's complete inability to protect human colonies. The Council was paralyzed by bureaucracy while human worlds burned. The time for secrecy was over. Admiral Davis activated emergency protocols that had never been used before. Deep in the asteroid belt, the UHS Leviathan received orders to deploy immediately. Captain Morrison read the message 3 times, knowing that using the ship's weapons would likely mean the end of humanity's membership in the Federation. The Leviathan's crew had been training for this moment for months, but they were still not prepared for actual combat. Dr. Carter ran final checks on the reality displacement systems, while Chief Engineer Paul Stevens monitored the exotic matter reactors. The weapons required precise calibration, and even small errors could be catastrophic. Jake stood on the bridge as his ship moved toward the New Dallas system. The Leviathan was traveling under full stealth, its experimental cloaking technology hiding them from Zephyrian sensors. Through the view screen, he could see the enemy fleet in orbit around the colony world, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the system's sunlight. The Zephyrian forces had grown even larger since the initial invasion. Intelligence counted over 300 vessels now, ranging from small escort ships to massive fortress-class battleships. They had turned New Dallas into a slave world, forcing the human population to work in crystalline mines that were poisoning the planet's atmosphere. Commander Stone's surviving ships were hiding in the asteroid field, desperately trying to repair damage and resupply their weapons. Alex had sent repeated requests for reinforcements, but the Federation response was always the same. Diplomatic solutions were being pursued. Military action was not authorized at this time, but Alex's sensors suddenly detected something impossible. A massive energy signature was approaching the system, larger than any known Federation vessel. The contact appeared on screen as a ship 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that Alex did not recognize. The vessel's design was clearly human, but no human ship had ever been built on such a scale. Jake opened a communication channel to the surviving Federation ships. "Commander Stone, this is Captain Morrison of the UHS Leviathan. We are here to assist." Alex stared at his screen in disbelief. The Leviathan was unlike any ship in Federation records. Its hull was smooth and dark, covered in weapon turrets that seemed to bend space around them. Energy readings were off the scale, suggesting power systems far beyond current human technology. The Zephyrian fleet had noticed the newcomer as well. Their ships moved into attack formation, quantum torpedoes charging for another devastating volley. War Prime Krexthal, the crystalline commander of the invasion fleet, sent a message on all frequencies. "Unknown vessel, you will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Your pathetic Federation weapons cannot harm us. Prepare to join your colonies in servitude." Jake looked at Dr. Carter, who nodded from her science station. The reality displacement weapons were fully charged and ready to fire. The moment of truth had arrived for humanity and their impossible warship. Captain Morrison stared at the Zephyrian fleet spread across his view screen. 300 crystalline warships floated in formation around New Dallas, their surfaces glowing with weapons that had already destroyed dozens of Federation vessels. War Prime Krexthal's threat echoed through the bridge, demanding surrender from what the aliens assumed was just another weak human ship. Lieutenant Commander Katie Bell worked frantically at her tactical station, calculating firing solutions for weapons that had never been used in actual combat. The reality displacement cannons required precise targeting data, and one miscalculation could erase their own allies instead of the enemy. Katie had run thousands of simulations, but this was different from any training scenario. Dr. Carter monitored her exotic matter readings from the science station. The quantum vacuum energy was building inside the weapon cores, creating small tears in space-time that made her instruments scream warnings. She had designed safety protocols to prevent catastrophic failures, but even she was not completely sure what would happen when 12 reality displacement cannons fired at the same time. Jake opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian fleet. War Prime Krexthal, this is Captain Morrison. Release the human prisoners and withdraw from this system immediately. This is your only warning. Laughter filled the bridge speakers, a sound like breaking glass that made everyone wince. Krexthal's response was swift and brutal. Foolish humans, you will watch your colonies burn before we enslave you all. Your Federation friends cannot save you now. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire immediately. Hundreds of quantum torpedoes streaking toward the Leviathan. The crystalline weapons were designed to penetrate any known shield technology, but they struck something they had never encountered before. The reality distortion barriers around the human ship absorbed the energy completely, the torpedoes simply vanishing as they touched the defensive field. Krexthal's voice carried confusion and anger. Impossible. No Federation technology can stop our weapons. What manner of ship is this? Jake looked at Katie, who nodded that her targeting solutions were ready. The first shot would be at minimum power, aimed at one of the smaller escort vessels. He wanted to minimize casualties if possible, but the Zephyrians had already made their choice by enslaving human colonies. Fire reality displacement cannon 1, Jake ordered. The weapon charged for 30 seconds, building energy that made the entire ship vibrate. When it discharged, there was no flash of light, no explosion, no sound. A Zephyrian escort ship, 300 meters long and carrying 3,000 crew members, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next moment there was only empty space. The psychological impact on the enemy fleet was immediate and devastating. Zephyrian sensors could detect no debris field, no energy signature, no trace that the ship had ever existed. Their quantum scanners showed only void where their vessel had been, as if reality itself had been edited to remove it. Panic spread through the crystalline fleet. Ship commanders demanded explanations from their sensors, but no technology in their databases could explain what they had witnessed. The humans had somehow erased one of their vessels from existence, violating every law of physics the Zephyrians understood. War Prime Krexthal's response was rage and desperation. All ships, attack formation Omega. Destroy that human vessel before it can fire again. Use every weapon we have. The entire Zephyrian fleet concentrated their fire on the Leviathan. Quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons, and phase disruptors struck the human ship in waves. But the reality distortion shields held firm, absorbing energies that should have vaporized any known vessel. The Leviathan sat motionless in space, completely unharmed by the massive bombardment. Dr. Carter watched her readings with growing concern. The exotic matter systems were stable, but each reality displacement shot created ripples in local space-time. Too many shots fired too quickly could potentially damage the fabric of reality itself. She warned Jake that they were approaching dangerous threshold levels. Katie calculated her next target, a Zephyrian cruiser that was firing on the refugee ships trying to escape New Dallas. The vessel was larger than the escort, requiring more power to completely erase it. She locked onto the target and waited for Jake's order. Fire Cannon 2, full power, Jake commanded. This time the effect was even more dramatic. The Zephyrian cruiser, over a kilometer long and housing 15,000 crew members, vanished instantly. The reality displacement beam created a visible purple fracture in space where the ship had been. A tear in the universe that took several minutes to heal itself. Commander Stone watched from his damaged Federation ship, recording everything for transmission back to headquarters. The footage showed weapons beyond anything in Federation databases, technology that seemed to violate the fundamental laws that governed reality. Alex realized he was witnessing the birth of a new age in galactic warfare. The Zephyrian fleet began to break formation as fear overcame their military discipline. Many of their ship commanders had never seen anything disappear so completely, and some were beginning to question whether they were fighting demons rather than humans. But Krexthal held his forces together through threats and promises of glory. Cowards, the War Prime broadcast to his fleet. They are only humans with unknown technology. We have conquered 1,000 worlds and enslaved 100 species. We will not be defeated by these soft creatures. But Jake was not finished demonstrating human capabilities. He ordered Katie to target 3 enemy vessels simultaneously, using the Leviathan's ability to fire multiple reality displacement cannons at once. The tactical officer selected targets carefully, choosing ships that were bombarding the colony world's surface. 3 reality displacement beams fired in perfect synchronization, erasing 3 Zephyrian destroyers from existence in the same instant. The combined effect created multiple tears in spacetime, purple fractures that made the surrounding space shimmer like heat waves. Several nearby enemy ships were caught in the quantum cascade effects, their hulls beginning to phase in and out of reality. The Zephyrian fleet's morale finally broke completely. Ship after ship began to retreat toward the edge of the system, abandoning their attack formations and fleeing in panic. But Krexthul was not ready to give up his prize. The War Prime's massive flagship, a fortress ship over 2 kilometers long and housing 100,000 Zephyrians, moved to intercept the fleeing vessels. Any ship that retreats will be destroyed, Krexthul announced. We will defeat these humans or die trying.
Prepare all weapons for final assault.
Jake realized that the battle had reached its critical moment. The Zephyrian flagship was the key to their entire invasion force, and destroying it would end the threat to human colonies permanently. But the massive vessel would require the combined power of multiple reality displacement cannons, creating quantum effects that could potentially damage local spacetime permanently. Dr. Carter warned him one final time about the risks, but Jake had already made his decision. The Zephyrians had enslaved human colonies and murdered Federation diplomats. They had chosen this path, and now they would face the consequences of fighting humanity's ultimate weapon. The footage from Commander Stone's ship reached Federation headquarters within hours of the battle's end. The recording showed the impossible destruction of War Prime Krexthul's flagship, erased from existence by 3 synchronized reality displacement beams that tore purple fractures in space itself. The massive Zephyrian fortress ship, along with its 100,000 crew members, had simply vanished without leaving even a single atom behind. Supreme. Judge Talvar of the Centauri species watched the battle recording, for the 7th time in his private chambers on Alteria Prime. The ancient being had lived for over 3,000 years and had seen every type of weapon technology the galaxy had to offer, but nothing in his experience compared to what the humans had unleashed against the Zephyrian Empire. News of the human superweapon spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace communications. Species that had existed for millions of years reacted with mixtures of awe, terror, and outrage. The peaceful Altarians called emergency council sessions. The militaristic Corvin Republic demanded immediate access to the technology. The ancient Vorthan collective broke their traditional silence to condemn the weapons as abominations. President Maria Santos sat in her office in New Geneva, reading reports from every corner of human space. The Zephyrian invasion had been stopped completely, their surviving ships fleeing beyond the galactic rim. But the political consequences were just beginning. Federation species were demanding explanations for weapons that violated the fundamental laws of physics. Admiral Davis faced the most difficult moment of his career as he stood before a special Federation tribunal. The courtroom was filled with representatives from 127 different worlds, all demanding answers about humanity's secret weapons program. Chief Diplomat Rachel Moore sat beside him, knowing that every word could determine humanity's future in the galaxy. Judge Talvar began the proceedings with formal charges that made the entire courtroom fall silent. Admiral Davis, you stand accused of developing prohibited weapons technology in direct violation of Federation law. These reality displacement cannons represent a clear threat to galactic stability and the natural order of the universe itself. The evidence against humanity was overwhelming. Dr. Carter's research files had been seized by Federation investigators, revealing years of secret development work on exotic matter physics. The construction records from the asteroid shipyards showed massive resource expenditures hidden from Federation oversight. The Leviathan itself was proof of humanity's violation of weapons restrictions, but Admiral Davis was not apologizing for his actions. Honorable Judge, the Federation failed to protect human colonies from Zephyrian aggression. Your response to the invasion was diplomatic protests while our people were enslaved and murdered. We had no choice but to defend ourselves with whatever means necessary. The prosecutor, a tall blue being from the Rigel system, presented detailed technical analysis of the reality displacement weapons. These devices do not simply destroy matter, they erase it from existence completely. The quantum effects could potentially destabilize local spacetime on a permanent basis. No species should possess such dangerous technology. Dr. Carter was called to testify about her research and the weapons she had created. She stood before the tribunal with quiet dignity, explaining the theoretical basis for reality displacement in terms that most representatives could understand. Her testimony revealed the incredible complexity of the technology and the safeguards she had built into the systems. The weapons are dangerous, but they can be used safely in limited quantities, Lisa explained. My calculations show that widespread use could indeed cause problems, but the isolated firing we demonstrated poses no significant risk to universal stability. But the psychological warfare potential proved equally concerning to the Council. The footage from the battle showed Zephyrian ships fleeing in complete panic after witnessing their vessels simply vanish from existence. Several Federation psychologists testified that weapons, capable of completely erasing targets, would create unprecedented terror in any enemy force, Captain. Morrison's testimony was the most dramatic moment of the entire trial. Jake stood before the assembled representatives and described the impossible choice he had faced during the battle. I could allow human colonies to remain enslaved and watch more Federation diplomats die, or I could use forbidden weapons to save innocent lives. The choice was clear. The defense took an unexpected turn when intercepted Zephyrian communications were presented as evidence. Federation intelligence had discovered that the Empire's invasion of human space was just the beginning of a much larger campaign. The crystalline aliens had been planning to attack 17 other Federation worlds, including the peaceful Altarian homeworld itself. Rachel Moore stood to address the tribunal with this new information. The reality displacement demonstration did not just save human colonies. It prevented a galaxy-wide war that could have claimed billions of lives across dozens of worlds. The Zephyrians abandoned their expansion plans completely after witnessing our defensive capabilities. This revelation changed the entire atmosphere in the courtroom. Representatives from species that had been targeted by the Zephyrian war plans began to reconsider their positions. The Altarian Chancellor admitted that their intelligence services had detected increased Zephyrian scouting activity near their borders before the human demonstration. Several younger species quietly approached human diplomats during recess periods, asking about the possibility of acquiring reality displacement technology for their own defense. The Corvin Republic's military attaché made direct inquiries about licensing agreements. Even some peaceful species were reconsidering their positions on weapons development. Judge Talvar faced an impossible decision that would affect every species in the galaxy. The humans had clearly violated Federation law by developing prohibited weapons, but those same weapons had prevented a massive war that could have destroyed galactic civilization. The reality displacement technology was too dangerous to allow, but too effective to simply ignore. The ancient Vorthon Collective sent their first communication to the Federation Council in over 1,000 years. These beings of pure energy had observed galactic civilization since its beginning, and their message carried special weight. The human weapons represent a fundamental disruption to the natural order. However, their use prevented greater disruption that would have resulted from Zephyrian expansion. The Machina Consensus, a network of artificial intelligences from the outer galaxy, provided detailed probability calculations about reality displacement technology. Their analysis showed a 23.7% chance that widespread use could trigger a universal cascade failure, but also calculated that the psychological deterrent effect would prevent most conflicts from ever beginning. As the trial entered its final week, Jake found himself thinking about Ambassador Helen Wright and the other diplomats who had died trying to find a peaceful solution. The Federation's commitment to diplomacy was admirable, but it had failed when faced with an enemy that had no interest in negotiation. Sometimes the only language aggressors understood was superior force. The verdict would determine not just humanity's fate, but the future of weapons technology throughout the galaxy. Judge Talvar and the tribunal faced a choice between maintaining their principles and acknowledging the harsh realities of galactic politics. The decision would reshape the balance of power among the stars forever. After 6 months of deliberation, Judge Talvar stood before the assembled Federation Council to announce the most important decision in galactic history. Representatives from 127 worlds filled the Great Chamber on Alteria Prime, their various forms creating a tapestry of alien life that had never before faced such a momentous choice. The Galactic Edict of 2388 was read aloud in 17 different languages, its words carrying the weight of centuries of Federation law and tradition. The reality displacement weapons developed by humanity were formally banned from construction, deployment, or use by any member species. All existing weapons of this type must be decommissioned immediately, and all research data destroyed under Federation oversight. President Santos listened to the verdict from her office on Earth, surrounded by her closest advisors and military leaders. The ban was expected, but the second part of the edict was unprecedented in Federation history. The Council was offering humanity a new role that had never existed before. Galactic enforcers with authority to police threats beyond Federation space using conventional weapons only. Admiral Davis felt both relief and concern as he heard the complete terms. Humanity would be granted significant autonomy and resources to build a new type of fleet, ships powerful enough to handle external threats, but limited to Federation-approved weapon systems. It was a compromise that recognized human military effectiveness while maintaining galactic stability. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Leviathan as the edict was broadcast throughout human space. The ship that had been so powerful the galaxy outlawed it would have to give up its ultimate weapons, but it could continue serving as a guardian of peace. The choice now fell to humanity's leaders: accept the enforcer role or face possible expulsion from galactic civilization. Dr. Carter received the news in her laboratory aboard the ship, where she had been monitoring the long-term effects of reality displacement technology on the crew. Her research had revealed disturbing findings that she had not shared with anyone yet. Prolonged exposure to exotic matter was causing subtle genetic mutations in the crew members, changes that might become dangerous over time. The debate in Earth's government chambers was intense and emotional. Some leaders argued that accepting the enforcer role would make humanity permanent outsiders in Federation society, forever marked as the galaxy's warriors rather than its diplomats. Others insisted that the role played to human strengths and would give them influence far beyond what their small population might normally warrant. Jake found himself at the center of the most important decision in human history. His successful use of the reality displacement weapons had proven that humanity could stand against any threat, but it had also marked them as dangerous in the eyes of peaceful species. The galaxy was offering them a chance to be protectors rather than pariahs, but the price was giving up their most powerful weapons forever. The Corvan Republic made a secret offer during the deliberation period, promising massive resources and territorial concessions if humanity would share the reality displacement technology with them. Other military-focused species made similar proposals, recognizing the strategic advantage such weapons would provide. But accepting any of these offers would mean breaking with the Federation completely. Chief Diplomat Rachel Moore worked tirelessly to build support for the Enforcer Compromise among Federation species. She argued that humanity's warrior nature, which had once been seen as primitive and barbaric, actually made them ideal guardians for peaceful civilizations. Humans could do the fighting that other species were unwilling or unable to do themselves. The turning point came when the peaceful Altarians formally endorsed the Enforcer proposal. Their chancellor explained that even the most diplomatic species sometimes needed others willing to use force against those who rejected negotiation. The Zephyrian invasion had proven that some enemies could only be stopped through superior military power. President Santos called for a vote in the Global Assembly, knowing that this decision would define humanity's place among the stars for generations to come. The debate lasted for 3 days, with passionate arguments on both sides. Some representatives feared that accepting the warrior role would corrupt human society, while others argued it was humanity's natural destiny. The vote was closer than anyone expected, but the Enforcer proposal passed by a narrow margin. Humanity would give up their reality displacement weapons in exchange for becoming the Federation's military arm against external threats. It was a role that carried both great honor and terrible responsibility. Captain Morrison made the hardest decision of his career, as he stood in the Leviathan's main weapon bay. The 12 reality displacement cannons that had saved human colonies and stopped a galactic war would be powered down forever. He gave the order to Chief Engineer Paul Stevens, watching as humanity's ultimate weapons became nothing more than exotic metal sculptures. The decommissioning ceremony was broadcast throughout the galaxy, showing the Federation that humanity was willing to honor their agreement. Dr. Carter personally oversaw the shutdown of each exotic matter reactor, her instruments recording the final quantum signatures as the reality displacement systems went offline permanently. But the Leviathan's transformation was just beginning. Federation engineers arrived with advanced technology, gifted by grateful member species, weapons and systems that would make the ship one of the most powerful conventional vessels in the galaxy. The reality displacement cannons were replaced with plasma arrays that could punch through any known armor, while new shield generators provided protection against most enemy weapons. 1 year later, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the transformed Leviathan as it patrolled the galaxy's frontier regions. The ship led a fleet of 50 human vessels, all equipped with the best conventional technology the Federation could provide. They were no longer the ultimate weapon, but they were still formidable guardians of galactic peace. The first test of the human enforcement fleet came when the hegemony of crab-like aliens from beyond the galactic rim launched raids against Federation border worlds. These new enemies had never faced human military tactics, and they learned quickly why the galaxy had once feared humanity's weapons. Superior training, innovative strategies, and relentless determination proved just as effective as reality displacement technology. Dr. Carter continued her research from a new laboratory on Luna Base, but her focus had shifted from weapons to exploration. She was developing new theories about faster-than-light travel that could open entire galaxies to peaceful exploration. The same exotic matter principles that had created ultimate weapons might also create gateways to infinite possibilities. Jake reflected on the price of power as he watched stars stream past his view screen. During another patrol mission, the ship that had once been able to erase entire fleets from existence was now limited to conventional weapons. But it had gained something more valuable: the trust and respect of peaceful species throughout the galaxy. Humanity had learned that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to protect those who could not protect themselves. The galaxy was safer with humans as its guardians, and perhaps that was worth more than any ultimate weapon could ever be.